Well, hello and welcome, friends. Welcome, George.
Hi, Erica. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Macabre& Company.
Yes, amazing. I'm so excited. This week is my episode, and do I have a story for you?
I'm so
But
excited to hear
first,
about it.
I can't wait to tell you everything. But first, you should tell us what card is for today.
Oh, yes. Good point. Here we go. So the card that I just drew for our second episode is the Queen of Swords. The Queen of Swords is someone who knows the boundary between the emotional and logical realms very well. They're usually intelligent, very in touch with their intuition, and use honesty as their best policy. Because they generally lack emotion, they're able to see things with the mind alone without the heart getting in the way. The Queen of Swords can take the heart out of a specific situation, or on the flip side, can show when a little heart is needed. Showing emotions is by no means a sign of weakness, and this card calls for a time to check in and find out where both your head and your heart are. Detaching from your heart for a moment may bring clarity that you couldn't find before, and vice versa. Be honest with yourself and your doubts. Try ditching your feelings when thinking about the situation, and imagine removing your heart and think about the logistics. Or perhaps you're facing the opposite problem. Is it practicality getting in the way of what your heart wants? What do you see when you remove your personal feelings from the equation? Take a step back and check in with your habits. Are you living in a fantasy world, or are you being practical in the way you're living your life? Yes, I am living in a fantasy world, and I always will.
Yes, that's really fun. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good
Oh my
card for
God.
today, especially for
Um,
us. A reminder to take our emotions out of
yes.
situations sometimes, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easy to react passionately and not thoughtfully.
Yeah, I often say that at work to myself, but also to like colleagues and stuff and team members in like coaching sessions or whatever. I'm like, we got to
Yeah.
remove our emotions from this in order to
Yeah.
move through it, you know? So really
Yeah.
important card there.
I I myself don't react emotionally. I react very thoughtfully and sometimes to my detriment. Sometimes people are like, "Do you even care?" I'm like, "No, I care. I just am thinking it through first." But that's always something that I need to coach people as well, like
Yeah.
especially in customer service. The guest is not always right, but the guest is always human, and we have to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I am going to take, so last week you took us way, way back to the
Way back.
1600s, way
Mm-hmm.
back.
Yeah.
I'm not taking you quite that far back. I'm taking you to the Australian gold rush.
Ooh, cowboys.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot. I'm in Victoria, is the state that I'm in Australia. And there's a lot of little towns. And I think Australia is like this in general. Like the coast, everybody kind of lives on. And the further inland you get, the less people live because it's so hot. The more that you go into these states, you find all of these really cool little towns that have such a big piece of history. So a place that we're really close to is called Ballarat, and there's Ballarat and Ararat that are like gold rush towns, and they really, when you go there, they look like something you would see in the States as well, or Canada. Like they look gold rushy. You get there and
Mm.
you're like, yes, like they kind of, the buildings and things look like Alaska a little bit, like they have that
Like
similar feel.
wooden. Mm-hmm. Like wooden
Yeah, like
houses.
wooden,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah, it all like the main street kind of has that vibe. So there is a place in Ballarat called Sovereign Hill, and it is a simulation of an 1880s town. So you go in and you can watch them make candy. They like pull it and make it by hand, and there's a like sheriff person dressed up, and you can go through the different sections of the town, and they had like the rich section where the mining. These are all mining towns, right? Because it's the gold
Mm.
rush. So they had mining, like the boss of, I've already forgotten what the boss of the mining town is, but he had a house on the hill that like overlooked everything. And then as you got closer to the mines, it was like the poorer and poorer people until you got like really close to the mines and to the gold trails where people were just living in tents and like panning for gold or going down into the mines and spending all of their time like digging things up. So it's really a wealth disparity. There's the very wealthy and then the very poor, but everybody's like trying to strike it rich, and you can actually pan for gold. And
That's
I
fun.
went. It's so fun. I went here a couple of weeks ago and took like a little vlog. So we'll be posting that on the Patreon to kind of go with this to accompany this episode because it was super, super fun. Um, but what happened there, and in Creswick is the town, is the Australasian mining disaster. So this is one of the worst mining disasters in all of Australian history, and it happened in 1882. So we are horses and carriages, we're buggies, but we have some steam powered things. They do have like mining equipment, so not totally dark ages, but not 2024.
Right.
So on the 12th of December in 1882, there were some miners working a night shift at the new Australasian mine, and they went 250 feet down the shaft and then 2,000 feet to the working phase. So on December 12th, 1882, there were some miners that were working the night shift at the new Australasian mine, and they went down the mine shaft, and they're going down and down and down. It is like hundreds of feet down into the
Mm-mm.
earth. And we also, like when we were there, you go on the little mining carts and you go down and down. And it is a different kind of dark down there. Like it is so dark you can't even like feel your eyeballs anymore. It's wild how dark it
Yikes.
is.
Yeah, I remember as a
Yeah.
kid they took us. We went on a field trip to a mine in Yorkshire, and I remember coming out and saying, I'm never doing that again. I'm never going down a mine again." I was terrified.
It's crazy. It's yeah, it was very even now when it's and they have it like very well maintained, and they've got like a tour you can so we actually took this tour that talked about this, and you go down and they actually have like projector images, and it tells you the whole story. So while you're down there, they've really put a lot of work into like, and there's
Right.
dioramas and there's things explaining everything. There's lights and stuff, but getting down there is pitch black, and it really like puts you in that headspace of these people that were waking up before dawn, going down into these mines, staying there all day, and who knows what kind of danger they were putting themselves in. But
Yikes.
that's what mining was about. And at 5:30, so 5:30 a.m., they were all down there with a warning. There was a wall, obviously in the mines, the wall from the real drive, it burst with the pressure of all the water that had accumulated in behind it. And at 5:30 in the morning, without warning, a wall burst because of all of the water that was built up behind it. And it's like no one ever imagined that these massive disasters would happen because they hadn't happened yet. You went to work, you're in a mine, you didn't know. They told you it was safe, so
Yeah.
you assumed that it was safe. So they could go and rescue people, but it would like literally they had to like pull rocks and things out by their hands with their hands. So 41 men entered the Australasian number 2 mine for that night shift on Monday, the 11th of December. But in the earliest hours of the morning, when all of that water went flooding, 27 of them were trapped. So
Oh
27
Lord.
men trapped under that in that mine. And you could hear the noise of the flooding. So even the people that were on the ground, it was so loud, you could hear the water rushing into the caves from the ground. And James Spargo, our friend James Spargo, he was the engine driver, and he immediately like began to increase the speed of the pump to try to help. And then there were two other engine drivers, James Harris and Thomas Claugh, Clough.
Clough. Yeah, in the
Claugh.
UK we went. There's a factory in Halifax where I'm from called Dean Clough Mill.
Oh,
Spelled the same.
perfect. I'm so glad I asked. Oh, thank
Mm.
you. The mine manager, that's the mine manager, that's who we're talking about, with his up in his house on the hill. And he was called William Nicholas. He was asleep when this accident happened, but he immediately came running down, was on the scene. By 9:30 a.m., the news had circulated around Creswick, which is the town that the mine is in, and people had begun to congregate at the mine. They didn't know who was trapped, how long they were going to be trapped for, if they could get them out. People, their husbands and sons just went to work, and then there was this news that people were trapped, but 27 of them were trapped, and like,
God, that's
which ones? Nobody
terrifying.
knows.
Like absolutely
So terrifying.
terrifying. The thought of being stuck underground is like one of like my biggest fears, I think. Or being
It's
in a
yeah,
collapse of some sort, being trapped in something. Yikes.
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely terrifying. So by midday, they were still trapped, and word had circulated around from that mine to other towns and villages. And at the time, Victoria was just a colony, so even the word got even further than that, and people heard from all around, and people were coming and trying to help. And the trapped miners managed to like get to another space where it was called the number 11 jump off, which is I think like a platform from
Mm.
what they showed us. So they kind of were like kind of making it into this little covered area, into this platform, and they were huddling there and just were in the darkness. They were singing hymns and like praying for deliverance and for their loved ones. Some of them were writing messages on their like lunch pails to their family or whatever they could find, so that if they passed, their family could like at least see their last words. There
Yikes.
was two brothers called the Bellingham brothers. They tied themselves together so they wouldn't be separated. And finally, so this was Monday morning. They went down. Tuesday morning it collapsed. By Thursday morning is when they were able to get in to get these men, and unfortunately, 22 men died. And so of 27, 22 of them, only 5 of them came out. This disaster left 18 widows and 63 orphans, with those men dying. Um,
Wow.
they Yeah, just like massive, massive disaster. And so only 5 of them came out. And the funeral took place the next afternoon. They just like got right on it. They were putting that funeral together. And they did think that it would be the biggest funeral they ever had in Creswick. And they were absolutely right. But 4,000 people marched in the procession,
Wow.
including 2,000 members of the Miners Association, and 15,000 onlookers. Like just people came from all over to mourn these people. And 19 of them are buried in Creswick Cemetery, so I could visit them and pay my respects. And so they started an appeal, was what they like fundraising, they call appeals out here. So they started this big fundraiser for the widows and the orphans, and they collected money and were able to really like support the widows.
Hmm.
And the widows, they had enough that the widows received 15 shillings a week, and the orphans got between 1 and 5 shillings until they started employment or reached 17 years old. So they'd like everybody really pulled together. They managed to raise £20,000, because that was before we changed the Australian dollar. It was still
Oh, yeah.
pounds then. Yeah. And then within 2 years, Parliament changed that fund, because they had this fund that people had raised for. They changed it to like a proper fund. It was called the Mining Accidental Relief Fund. And they put an act in place for 1884. And it then became for the benefit of all mining accident victims. And that fund actually was in place until 1949. So it really like helped a lot of people, and that was even after the last widow of that particular accident died. And they put up a memorial 17 years later in the cemetery. And it really, like, this particular accident has really, like, it sent shockwaves everywhere. And it really spurred people to, like, have more resources in the mines and more safety things. Like, they just weren't safe. You just were just going down there and, like, hoping that things didn't collapse. They didn't think about that the water pressure would collapse walls. I'm just going to read this paragraph, because I think it really is succinct. Mining was a dangerous game. As an occupation, it provided the chance of a windfall, but more so, chance of going broke. It also provided a risk to your health and well-being. The dreaded miner's complaint, silicosis, was responsible for untold numbers of early deaths, while many
Mm.
miners were killed in action in their mines. In 1882, which is the year our story takes place, 71 miners were killed in mining accidents just in Victoria alone. And unfortunately, this one accident claimed the 22 of them. Um, and so I told you the Bellingham brothers tied themselves
Yeah.
together, right?
Hmm.
The great grandson of Benjamin Bellingham was our tour guide. So the Bellingham family is still in Victoria,
No
still, and he's
way.
working. Yes, yeah, he was there, took us on our tour. Like, his grandfather died, great grandfather died in the mine, and
Wow.
I guess his, yeah, grandfather was just a kid, but it's like direct descendants from this mining incident are
That's
still there and
crazy.
still. Isn't that wild? I have a really cool
Yeah.
picture, but you would go to see it.
There is
So
I mean, there's been like so many scary mining accident stories, but that one's crazy. That's a lot of people,
It's
huh?
right. It's so many people. And so when we were there, I was like trying to get some people talking about ghosts and things because a lot of the workers say they see ghosts
In the
and
mines, yeah.
we're in the mines, yeah, and just kind of around like so many people died in those times of weird things.
So are they gold? They were gold mines, right? It's a gold
There were gold
mine.
mines, yeah.
What is the
Um,
rock around it? Did they say? Is it like because like there's certain types of rock like sandstone, and I'd have to look
mm,
it up. There's certain types of rock that apparently are really they're like sponges for spirits and paranormal activity.
oh,
Yeah, like certain type of
I'm gonna have a look.
geographical locations they say are more prone to paranormal activity because of the type of rock that's there. Like older rock, more porous rock. There's yeah.
Oh, cool.
Hmm.
Wow. I'm trying to have a look. Let's see if it says. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, I read that on.
Oh, and I think, sorry, the water, in case anyone wonders where that, like the rush of water came from, there was like another mine. There was the number one mine shaft. This incident was in the new Australasian number two deep lead gold mine. And the number one gold mine was flooded. It was like parallel to number two. So that shaft got flooded and crashed through the second shaft, which is where the water came
Wow.
from. Yeah, so they just like they were bailing and they were trying to pump all the water out and bail it all out, and they had equipment transported from a monitor ship and the HMVS Cerebus, and they like tried to like really pump the water out, and it just didn't help. But if you go to the Creswick Museum, you can still see some of those messages that they wrote on their cans
That's pretty cool.
before
That's
they.
pretty
Yeah,
spooky. That's grim.
it is pretty sweet, and I can't figure out what other rock it was, but I'm sure I
So
could. I'm sure.
I just looked it up, and this says that limestone is a type of rock that's associated with paranormal activity in stone tape theory. A pseudoscientific theory that suggests limestone, quartz, and magnetite deposits can store information about historical events. When this information is released, it can cause a residual haunting where a past event is replayed in the present. Chills in my arms right
Wow.
now. Yeah.
So many chills. Oh my gosh, that could totally be it. Could totally be it, and that would be why people see them in the mines and see them around. When we went to get this tour, because there's like four different tours you can do, and I said, which one is the most haunted? And they kind of looked at each other and looked at me, and they were like, this one is like like, do people see things? They're like, yeah, they see people in the tunnels, and when because you're going so far down and like the lights are off sometimes, like people see things. People see things down there. And there was a whole, and when we got down there at the beginning, nothing was turning on. And just like that time I tried to Google that ghost that I couldn't Google,
Yeah.
lights weren't turning on. We were just like in the pitch black, and they're like, we might have to go back.
Yikes. If I'd have got down there
Yeah.
and things were turning on, they're like, we might have to go back. I'd be like, take me back. I want to go back now because if anything shuts off while we're down there, I don't trust you guys. I'd be like, get me out. I'm out. So there's this place in Yorkshire called White Scar Caves, and it is a huge cave, but it's like a walking tour. So like you're not crawling on your belly. Like I wouldn't do any of that. Anyway, like no way am I
Yeah.
gonna get into a cave where you crawl. But even these walking ones, I got in there. We went into like the first like cavern or whatever they call it, like the first area. And I said, nah, I want to get out of here. Because the tour guide's going, there's all
Wow.
this rock above us, all this water's coming down from the mountains above us. And I was like, I don't want to be in here, folks. I'm going to leave the group. I'll see you all in the gift shop. So they
Oh
had
my
a
gosh.
tea room. So I went
Um,
inside and had tea while everyone
oh,
else
that
went.
does sound really nice.
You know,
And I got these like the yummiest candies from Sovereign Hill. They and you can go in and watch them, and they pull all the candy. It's so cool. And so I had to get some, and they're so good. When I
sounds
come to
good.
visit you, I'm going to bring some candies from Sovereign Hill.
Yeah,
So good. But it's
please
and
do.
it's really like such a cool thing to go and do. And everybody's dressed up in their like 1800s garb, and they stay in character. Like they could work for Disney. We were trying to talk to these women, and they're like, yes, young ladies, you should definitely come sing with us in the choir at this time, and um, like full on in character. And they were in character when even when we walked away, they didn't stop and be like, "Yeah, right, my break's at 5." They were like stayed in character the whole time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I didn't find any gold when I was gold panning. I don't think I have the patience to be a gold panner. I
Um,
got really bored.
yeah, I'm more of a diamond type of gal anyway.
Yeah, and I don't think you can pan for diamonds.
Oh, you can't? Oh, okay.
I don't think, and not the same way you can pan for gold.
Oh. Wow, what a
Yeah,
great story.
but it was very cool.
That's really sad, but kind of
It is really
grim.
sad,
Yeah.
and really cool that you like people from the family that like I got to take a tour from the great grandson of somebody that perished in this mine. Like how it's crazy. Like I think I don't know. I forget that bloodlines still go on and people still exist, and
Hmm.
this is why we tell stories because we need to
Yeah.
pass on the
Yeah, I mean, it's
generations.
true when you think about that. It's like, think even stuff that goes way back. Like, think about Jack the Ripper. There is descendants of Jack the Ripper. They just don't know because no one knew who he
Yeah,
was. But there's descendants of
yeah.
him somewhere out there. Like,
Mhm.
I could be like a descendant of that.
It could be. Oh my gosh, you don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know. It's wild. But this mining disaster is very well remembered, and it did affect a lot of change in policies and how they dig and all of that stuff, and how like reinforced the mine shafts are, so
Yeah.
that it's not just knocked down by things.
And what year was that again? Sorry?
1882.
1882. Wow. I didn't
Yeah,
even think Australia was that old.
yeah. She's been around for a minute.
Should been around for a minute.
um,
Wow. Well, thank you, Erica, for sharing that
yes.
story of the.
Thank you. Sure, I
Yeah.
have a correction that to say because because I'm silly, and I was when I was doing the Galapagos Island episode, I was reading my notes, and at some point we were talking about it being 60 miles off the coast of Ecuador, which is a lie. Like I don't know which. I think some of the maybe the islands are 60 miles long. I don't. Now I've like not even googled my correct
Something
correction.
is 60 miles.
It was definitely in my notes, but Ro was like we took a plane, like we flew from Guayaquil to the main island, and I guess I'm just misremembering. I remembered, I don't know, I'm like, when you do a lot of traveling
Yeah.
you mash a bunch of trips together.
Yeah.
So we definitely flew to the main island of the Galapagos, and it's like 500 kilometers, not 60 miles.
That's okay. We can correct in the debrief. I don't think anyone's gonna care. Do you think anyone
No,
cares?
I don't know.
Well,
They'll
we
be
could
all
do
right.
it. We can do a
We'll find out.
debrief correction.
If
Yeah.
anyone's mad, let me know.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm excited to potentially visit one day and go to the museum.
Yes.
Check it out. That'll be
Yes, you'll have
fun.
to. I'm going to
Great.
take you to Sovereign Hill for sure.
Well, we'll put some pictures up and links to Sovereign Hill and everything in
Yes.
the description below on all of our socials. You
And
want to
our
take us
socials
out, Erica?
are, yeah. Make sure you follow us at Macabre&Co on TikTok, Instagram, and you can email us at macabre@gmail.com. We love to hear your ideas and your feedback. And also just like pop us a little 5-star review there and let us know your thoughts and feelings. And share, like, subscribe, tell your friends about us. If you feel so inclined to join the $5 a month tier for the Spooky Divas on Patreon at Macabre& Company, we would love to have you there. It's a really fun time. And until next time.
Stay spooky. Oh my gosh, that's your line. I got to say it this time.
Stay spooky, friends.